Okay, so now that this car has been out for a few years, there's still a lot of confusion out there as to whole DCT transmission fluid fill procedures, when to change a canister filter, when to change the fluid, when to do this. Do I have the old one? Do I have the new one? Do I need the two extra quarts? So on and so forth. There's been a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of information on it, and some of it can actually sound pretty confusing if you don't know how to break it down. So I'm going to break down all of the information for you as simply as possible so that way you can understand what you have, what you need, and when you have to take care of what maintenance. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to break down here is simply the filter on this car. There's a lot of confusion out there as to when the filter has to be changed and what filters has to be changed. Now, there are two transmission filters on your car. There's an external canister filter and then there's an internal filter. Simply put, the external canister filter, as per the maintenance records, have to be changed at 7,500 miles. Then the next one is 22,500 miles, and then every 22,500 miles after that. Now, if you decide to change yours early, and if you want to change as many times as you want, that's certainly not going to hurt anything. You can change as many times as you want. You're not going to over maintenance the car. It's only going to make it better. But you need to change it at 7,500 miles, 22,500 miles, and then every 22,500 miles after that. So your next one would be at 45,000 miles. That is your external canister filter. The next one is going to be your internal filter. There is a filter underneath the pan of this car, just like on a traditional automatic transmission on any other car that you would see before. Those would have to get changed in other cars, whatever. The internal transmission filter on this car does not have a maintenance interval. You do not have to change it at any point maintenance-wise for mileage, time, doesn't matter. The only time that filter will ever get changed is if you go into the transmission and make a repair, such as a valve body or something like that, or there's some sort of failure internally to the transmission, then the filter will get changed. But as far as the internal filter, there is no maintenance interval.
Okay, so here's a look of where all of your filters are. Again, there's two filters on the transmission itself, one inside the pan underneath there, but the main one that you're going to be changing all the time is going to be that filter right here, the external canister. Okay, that's going to be the service interval one where I talked about, where it's 7,500 miles and then 22.5 and then every 22.5 after that. To get that off, those are just some E6 bolts, and then you pull the cap off, and then there's an O-ring and a filter, and you pull it off, and that's how you change it. Now, in case you're ever wondering too, if you ever look inside that filter when you get it changed, in that filter kit, there's also a little yellow O-ring that comes in there. You always wonder what that's for. That's going to be for the drain plug right there, if you ever happen to change the fluid. And I will go over when you change the fluid and the intervals on that itself too, but that's pretty much where they are. Now, to get to all this, obviously it's a pretty involved process. You have to take apart both of the two pans that are right there. There's that front black one, and then there's the big silver one. The big silver one is covered by 22 bolts that are E14s. And then that front pan is an additional, I believe it's 10, 13 millimeter bolts, and then 13 10 millimeter bolts. So it's a total of 45 bolts to get to all of these. So that's where the two filters are, and that's how to get to them. Now, if for whatever reason you are changing the internal filter for whatever reason, or maybe you're just being overly cautious, but it's not necessary, when you take this pan off, or if you take it to the dealership, they're going to charge you for a filter, the pan gasket itself, and then these bolts that go around it. These bolts, according to GM, are not reusable. So just an FYI, if they charge you for those bolts, that's why.
Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is the flush procedure that you're supposed to go through whenever you change out the external canister filter, that one that's off to the side. Remember, that's the one that gets changed, not the one underneath the pan, okay? So the flush procedure is something that goes through whenever you change the external filter. Now, you do not have to do this procedure. If you can do it, great. If you don't do it, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. If you see videos with Josh Holder, one of the Corvette engineers, he talks about it, and he says that even when the car is going through its normal driving routines and everyday occurrences, it does the flush procedure all on its own. Now, to do the flush procedure, what you have to do is you have to have a scan tool that is capable of doing that. There's a lot of them out there that can do that, but the dealer can obviously do this as well with their scan tools, but there are aftermarket ones that can do it. I have one that can do it. I do it on mine because I can. All it basically does is it commands the car to about 2,000 or 3,000 RPM, I believe, for about 10 minutes or so. but it also kind of actuates a little bit of the solenoids and pressures inside. All it does is it forces fluid to go through that external canister filter in order to trap everything that's in there. So that way, when you do change out the filter, you're getting the maximum amount of contaminants out of the car once you do that procedure. So again, it's recommended, but not required. You can go without doing it. You will be perfectly fine without doing it otherwise. Now, as far as your intervals are concerned to change all these things, like I said, the external canister will be 7,500 miles, and then at 22,500 miles, and then every 22,500 after. If you want to change it more often in between, go ahead and do so. But you do have to change that 7,500 mile mark, plus or minus 500 miles, in order to keep your GM warranty and to maintain it. So you can do that on your own. Check with your dealer to make sure that they're going to acknowledge it. But there is a way to put it in your service app, excuse me, in the app to show your service history to prove that you did it. Okay. So 7,500 miles and then 22.5 every after for the external canister. Okay. The internal filter, again, does not have a maintenance interval, so don't worry about that. The fluid itself is every 3 years or 45,000 miles, whichever comes first. So if you only put 10,000 miles on your car in 3 years, you still have to change that fluid, okay? You have to change the fluid, but again, not the filter, not the internal filter, okay? The internal filter is a lifetime filter. Now, how to change that fluid, I'll show you that right now. So now, once you have all the pans and everything off, all the protective plates and everything, you can access your pan, which is right here. Then there's the drain plug right there. This bolt right here, that is for your transmission fluid. All you have to do is take that bolt out, let it drain, and then put it back in. Okay, easier. There's no easier way to do it. That's all it is. And again, whenever you look in the DCT canister kit, there's that little yellow O-ring that goes inside there. That's for that drain plug. You do not have to replace that yellow O-ring, but they give it to you just in case one is damaged. That O-ring is reusable. However, you can replace it if you have a new one. Now, as far as filling the transmission, that's going to be up here. If you look in the actual canister itself, right next to it, right there, there is your bolt for the fill port. That's how you fill the fluid and get it into the transmission itself. There's also that little gold plug on top of the transmission where you can put in fluid from there, but I'll go over that in a second here, but that is where you do it pretty much. There's your drain, there's your fill. Now, when you drain the fluid, you're going to have to obviously replace the fluid. And this is exactly what you're going to need. AC Delco DCT fluid. It's AC Delco DCT FFL-4. It says for dual clutch transmission. The part number is 19418016. You are going to need about 12 quarts of this stuff to refill it. Me personally, I would get 13 just in case to top it off. Whatever you lose a little bit, spill, whatever, who knows. So just have a little bit extra on hand. These you can get from a dealership. I would not trust any other fluid to go in this transmission other than this fluid. Nothing from any aftermarket companies either, no matter how good of a company they are. There's a lot of great ones out there, but I would only use this fluid, okay? Only. It is going to be about $45 a quart, give or take, $40 to $45 a quart. You need about 12 or 13. So expect to pay about $500 or $600 just in fluid. It is expensive, but again, this is the fluid you're going to change every 3 years or 45,000 miles. So then once you drain the fluid out, you're obviously going to have to refill it and check it, okay? So once you drain it out of the drain plug, put the drain plug back in, take the fill hole, and then pour it into the fill hole until it starts to dribble out. Just like on a traditional manual transmission car, you would do that to the point where it's at that bottom of the fill hole line where it starts to leak out. Once it starts to leak out, put the plug back in. Then, once you put the plug back in, start the car and warm it up and check the fluid level. The fluid level has to be checked in between 68 and 104 degrees Fahrenheit in order to have proper levels. You can do that easily by just going on your instrument panel cluster and looking at the transmission fluid temperature. Once it's at that temperature range, what you want to do is start the car, let it warm up, let it get to that range, okay? Then put the car in reverse for about 30 to 45 seconds, then in drive for about 30 to 45 seconds, and keep doing that back and forth for about 3 to 5 minutes. Once you have that done after about 3 to 5 minutes, shut the car off, put it up in the air, and then within 5 minutes, take that fill port plug out and see if any fluid is dripping out. You want it, again, to be just at that bottom level of it. If it's not, add fluid until it dribbles out. If it's already dribbling out, once you do it, let it dribble out to the point where it's kind of like a slow drip, where it's at that bottom of the fill hole, and that means you're good. Again, has to be in between 68 and 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Turn the car on, excuse me, once the car's already on, let it warm up. Then 30 to 45 seconds, reverse drive back and forth for about 5 minutes or so, shut it off, and then within 5 minutes, check that fill plug to see if it's at that bottom level. Add fluid if necessary. If it's not, plug it up and you're good. Okay, so how much fluid do you put in? Like I said, it's about 12 or 13 quarts. Now, there are some things that people are wondering about as far as the 2 extra quarts of fluid. Are you supposed to put in your transmission or not? So here it is simplified. If you have a Z06, if you have an E-Ray, if you have an upcoming ZR1, more than likely, you do not need to add the 2 extra quarts of fluid. Those have what's called a die-3 casting transmission, which I'll go over the differences in all of them shortly here, but you do not need the extra 2 quarts. That is because the casings was redesigned and the baffles and the sumps and everything were redesigned where you do not need those 2 extra quarts. So you just do the fill procedure as I just previously told you about. Okay, you do not need the 2 extra quarts if you have a Z06 or an E-Ray any year, or a ZR1 any year, and I would imagine any upcoming models as well too. If you have a Stingray and it's 2024 or newer, you definitely do not need the 2 extra quarts as well to go with that also, okay? 2024 or newer. Now, there are exceptions to some of this before. 2020s, 2021s, and 2022s do need the 2 extra quarts if you plan on using it for track use. And once you do the fill procedure, then you go to the top of the transmission where that little gold fill plug is, and you put the 2 extra quarts on there. There is also the other way you can do it. Once you have the car on the ground, you can take that left rear wheel off and tilt the car up on 13 degrees and fill it in through that fill port. But there are obviously some safety concerns when you do it that way. So either do it from that gold fill plug on top or the 2 extra quarts on the side. Now, if you have a 2023 model year Stingray, here's where the difference goes. And there is a bulletin that refers to this that shows the VIN break as to when you do it and when you don't. So here's the service bulletin that I'm talking about, okay? You can look at it. This is a service bulletin put out. You can type it into Google and find it, look at it, okay? And it is service bulletin number 23-NA-156. Okay, there it is right there. 23-NA-156 right there in the corner. Okay, this is the bulletin you can look up. If you have a 2023 model year and you have VIN number P5137263 or lower, you do need to add the 2 extra quarts. It has the old die 1 or die 2 casting of the transmission. Okay, if you have anything above that VIN number, you do not need to add the 2 extra quarts. So 2023 is sort of the changeover year, and that's where the anomaly occurs. So check your VIN number and take a look at that. If it's P5137263 or lower, yes, you need the 2 extra quarts. If it's higher than that VIN number, you do not need the 2 extra quarts for a Stingray. Again, if you have a 2023 Z06, you do not need the 2 extra quarts. All Z06s, all E-Rays, all ZR1s, everything after 2024 model year do not need the quarts. 2024 Stingrays do not need the 2 extra quarts. Again, 2020, 2021, and 2022 do need the 2 extra quarts. And if you have a 2023 Stingray, look at that VIN break, and that's where it's going to make the difference. So you also hear a lot of people talk about the different castings, okay? There's 3 different castings when it comes to these transmissions. Die 1, Die 2, and Die 3, okay? Die 3 is the one that is the newest one where you don't need to add that 2 extra quarts, and where I just explained before. Die 1 and Die 2 are when you do need the 2 extra quarts if you plan on using it for track use, okay? And for everything that I just previously stated for when the break is, so when you have a Die 1, Die 2, or Die 3, that's the difference. Now, if you happen to have the transmission pan off and you're not sure exactly, or you don't know, or you're not looking at the VIN number or whatever, the car's up in the air, or if you want to make absolutely sure as to which transmission casting you have, there is an easy way. And I'll show you underneath here. Look at the pan bolts. When the pan bolts on the transmission for a die 1 casting, there's going to be 15 bolts. For a die 2, there's going to be 19 bolts. And then, so if you have die 1 or die 2, you're also going to have 6 bolts along the front leading edge towards the front of the car to identify whether it being a die 1 or a die 2. Now keep in mind, a die 1 and die 2 pan are interchangeable. So it is possible to have an older pan on a newer pan on an older transmission, and so on and so forth. But go by the actual transmission itself and see how many bolts are along the front. If you only have 4 bolts along the front of the transmission, I'll show you in a second, that means you have a die 3 or one of the newer castings, okay? The newest one, the Z06, the E-Ray, the 2024s and later, and the 23s after that VIN break, okay? So 6 bolts, you have the old one. 4 bolts, you have the new one. Okay, and here's what it looks like, okay? You can see on the front of this transmission, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts along the front of it. Here's the rest of the car just to give you some reference, okay? The back of the car is right there. If you have 4 bolts right there, you have a die 3 or the newer casting, which you don't need the new fluid. If there's 6 bolts right there, then you have the old one, okay? And I'll show you another diagram here in a second. And here's the difference in what it looks like according to the bulletin. The one on the right with the 4 bolts, that's the newer one, and the one on the left with the 6 bolts, that's the older one, just to give you a better reference as to what it looks like. Now, just to recap on some of the parts that you'll be looking for too whenever you order this stuff. The DCT kit can be found online all over the place. It's part number 24045729. And the fluid, as I said before, is going to be this fluid right here. It's going to be a bottle that looks like that. Part number 19418016. Now, you're going to find these filters all over the internet and everything, okay? I would just say make sure when you order one of these things, get a GM original one. There's plenty of these ones that you can find off all over the internet that are like 20 bucks here and there, but there's a good reason why there's ones that are $100 and ones that are like $20 and whatever, okay? So I would definitely spend a little extra money. I would not trust an outside one. I would get a GM one, okay? Now, just to show you as well too, here's a picture of the actual filter kit. Here's what it comes with. It's going to have the filter itself, that blue big O-ring down there. It goes on the cap once you remove the filter, and those bolts that are not reusable that you have to replace whenever you put it back on. Those are E6, I think I said, believe. So replace all those bolts. That little yellow O-ring right there, that's going to be the O-ring for the transmission drain plug if you ever change it. So if you're just changing the filter and you don't have to change your fluid, don't worry about that little O-ring. It's just extra. Now keep in mind too, once you take this filter out, you are going to lose about 6 ounces of fluid every single time that you take it. It's about 3 to 6 ounces is what they say. It's not enough fluid for it to make a difference. It's relatively trivial. So you can always just take that fill plug out though to make sure that you're still full and topped off, but you should be fine. You can change that filter multiple times without losing enough residual fluid to have it be detrimental in any which way, shape, or form. So yeah, if you're going to get one of these kits, I definitely recommend only get a GM OEM original one. Don't buy one of those $20 ones that you can find on, because I hate to see you have failure with your car from a $20 filter when you could have just spent a little bit more extra money to get the known quality one. So now just to clarify something else too, to differentiate between the RPO codes that come with these transmissions, okay? They all have the same transmission. It's the Tremec DCT, the TR9080 8-speed dual clutch transmission. Now, ultimately, they're all the same pretty much. However, there are differences between a Stingray versus a Z06 and an E-Ray one, okay? So they have basically internal differences with the baffles and the strength of them and so on and so forth. They're mostly the same, but there are variations between them, okay? So the Stingray one, the RPO code is M1L, okay? That's for a Stingray, any Stingray. For a Z06, it's M1M, okay? And then for an E-Ray, it's MLH. Those are the RPO codes for them, the differences between them. Pretty much the differences between the Stingray and the Z06 transmission is probably the internal strengths and, like I said, the differences in years between the baffles and the castings, so on and so forth, like I explained before. The MLH, specifically for the E-Ray, is specific for the E-Ray. It's basically the same as the Stingray's transmission. However, it also has an electronic pump attached to it, part of it, that helps move the transmission and use it when you're using it in stealth mode or shuttle mode. It can put the car into neutral and kind of decouple things so that way you can move the car back and forth. It basically puts it into neutral. Okay, it's an electronic pump that's put onto it. So as we know too, with these cars, one of the big faults is if you happen to have a transmission failure, the car won't start or whatever, you're not going to be able to get into neutral unless the car is running. The reason is that because the hydraulic pump inside the car is gear driven, so it only spins when the engine is spinning. Okay, if you ever seen a clutch pack, once these things are apart, there's a gear on the back of the clutch pack that drives that oil pump for the internal, for the actual transmission itself, and allows you to get it into neutral. Okay, the E-Ray is an exception to that because it has an auxiliary electronic pump in order to get it into neutral or whatever whenever you're going in stealth or shuttle modes. Now, this is an advantage for the E-Ray. God forbid the thing ever breaks down, you have to put it on a tow truck. You can just put it in electric mode, you can get it up on the tow truck just fine. You don't have to worry about popping to neutral. Now, there's that tool you can buy too, that Boost District and Paragon sells, that little red tool, which works, I'm sure, great. I haven't seen one, but it looks pretty amazing. So you can pop the car into neutral otherwise. In an E-Ray, you kind of don't need that. As long as the electric system still works, you can get the car into neutral just by putting it in shuttle mode or putting it in stealth mode, and you can move it back and forth, and it will decouple the transmission in the rear in order to ultimately put the rear of the car into neutral so you can move it back and forth. Now, here's how you would reset all of your lights, okay? You can reset all these lights on your own right from the dash. You don't need a scan tool. You can do it from right here. It's pretty easy, okay? Once you're on the dash, you go on, and you're going to use these controls right down here, the left and right arrows, and then this wheel button right here is going to be like your enter button, okay? So once you get to it, all you're going to do is scroll over to where it says maintenance, and it's right there. Then use the wheel to scroll down. You can see all your different ones, air filter okay, blah, blah, blah. Go back up and to where you are at these oil and fluid life, okay? Then you press the wheel, like the enter button, to go into there, okay? Now it's going to give you the option, reset engine oil if you change your oil, reset transmission fluid, and reset transmission filter. All you would do is go down now, so say I changed the fluid, but I didn't. Go down, you click on the wheel, enter, and it's going to tell you, would you like to reset? No, yes. I did not change it, so I'm going to hit no, the left arrow, but I would hit yes otherwise, and it would go ahead and reset it for me. Other than that, you can just go to the front and keep clicking back, and it'll go right there. It'll tell you all of the percentages on what you have for transmission fluid, filter, and the engine oil itself too. You do not need a scan tool to reset this. You can do it right from here. You can do it with the car running or with it in accessory mode. Either way, it doesn't matter. Now, there's also another way you're going to do it. You can add this to your service history in your app to show GM that you did it, and I'll show you how to do that right now. Okay, now here's where you would add the service history to the app on your phone, okay? Now, once you have the app on your phone, it's the My Chevrolet app. This is on Android. I would imagine on an iPhone, it's going to look very similar, but pretty much the same. Now, I am going to cover part of my phone with this just because I don't want all my personal information out there for the world to see, but you'll get the point, okay? So once you have it open, go down there, and you're going to go down to the My Chevrolet app and go ahead and click that, okay? Once you click that, the app will pop up, okay? And you'll be at your screen right here where it shows everything. In the upper right-hand corner here, there's going to be two letters, your initials. Go ahead and click those initials, and everything will pop up here. Then you can go down here to where it says account. Just click account, and then it'll pop up. It's loading, okay? And you can scroll to the point where you get to your phone, scroll down to account, or excuse me, keep scrolling all the way down. You can see there's all different options you can do. But then there's going to be one thing in particular that you're going to want to do is first click on your car, and then you scroll down, or excuse me, you'll scroll through it, and you can go up and you can click here where you get to these four buttons right here. Service history. You do service history, and then once that pops up, service history, and it'll let you add everything. See, I had a date on there of stuff that I added, but you can go down there, and if you want to add a service history, all you have to do is hit the little plus button, or excuse me, up here where it says add service record, you click service record, input the information, click save, and then it'll add it, and then it'll be in GM's actual database as well too. So when it comes to servicing the transmissions on these cars, you can see there is a little bit to them. They are a little bit tricky. There are some things that you need to know here and there. It's not so simple as the old days with other cars where just you change it a certain mileage, or you wait in intervals were simple. What year do you have? What model do you have? What casting do you have? Do you need the two extra quarts? So on and so forth. So when people kind of get a little, some people will say it's very, very simple, and it kind of is, but you need to have it explained to you. Okay, so once you get it all explained, obviously you understand it. I tried to do my best here to simplify it as best I could to answer all the questions and to break it down so no matter what model year or what model you have, you can figure out exactly what you need to do and when. So anyways, this was a relatively comprehensive breakdown of a lot of information to simplify as much as possible, but I hope you kind of got something out of it. So I hope this helps. Good luck.